Parliament of Uganda is moving towards establishing an Institute of Parliamentary Studies. The institute is anticipated to close a gap that has existed over time to assist elected members of parliament, the parliamentary staff, parliamentary news reporters, local government councillors, as well as parliaments in the region build the capacity necessary to effectively handle parliamentary business. Unlike the executive and the judiciary, Parliament, an organ responsible for representation, legislation and oversight in the country, until today has no training institute in place to take care of capacity building gaps in the legislature.
All the other two arms, the executive and the judiciary, have got deliberate institutions that have been structured to train people to fulfill the requirements of those institutions. Unfortunately, apart from the formal education a person gets before he is elected, there is no deliberate training that has been instituted to model the staff of parliament and the members of parliament to the requirements of their jobs. So to us as a commission and as a parliament, we feel that when this institute is finally instituted and launched, it will go a long way to help the legislature as an arm of government to train its staff and members of parliament to the requirements of the jobs that they do.
Emmanuel Dombo is a commissioner and one of the longest-serving members of parliament. He asserts that the formation of the Institute of Parliamentary Studies will address the understanding of legislation cornerstones that many a time affects all-inclusive participation.
We want people to be trained in the procedures, in the legislative process. How does a bill originate? What are the transitory stages through which a bill goes before it becomes law? The budget process. How is it initiated and how is it concluded? Private members' bills. How are they conducted? Public inquiries. How are they conducted? One time you had members of parliament question one of our serious investors in Uganda. But either they were very tough or the person himself was timid. The resultant factor was that somebody died. And there was a debate whether it was the committee of parliament that caused his death or the death was a result of something else. But we believe if members of parliament are given more capacity, they could be able to handle issues more maturely and in a different manner.
Honorable Dombo shares his experience over time.
I've been in parliament since 1996. But over that period, I've been able to acquire skills on the job. But it has not been easy. There has been a number of programs run in the past. And also, Parliament has been sponsoring members of Parliament for exchange visits. To visit other parliaments, to visit other training institutes, to find out how work is done elsewhere. And I want to tell you that to acquire the level of knowledge and experience that I have now, it has taken some bit of time.
The Director, Planning and Development, Coordination Office of Parliament, Mr. Disonokumu, says that some members of Parliament and staff come to work in Parliament as their first job opportunities and therefore need to be helped to understand the ethics of the highest institution in the country.
As you are aware, let me give a historical background that parliamentary studies actually are not taught in universities. Parliamentary practices are learned when one joins Parliament, both staff and members. So we have been spending a lot of money conducting workshops and seminars in hotels and other various venues. We are very grateful to our development partners who have been giving money for the training.
The institute with tailored courses will be an avenue to development of career for targeted members of society.
Now there's need for professional development. So this professional development is costing us a lot to be taking people to outside countries, So this sort of institute could even make modules and get lecturers for such courses so that we develop our parliamentary staff into professionalism other than just the academic which they've got from university, to handle parliament how to handle parliamentary procedures, parliamentary practices, how to conduct themselves when they're acting with MPs. Because it is strange that working in parliament is something very unique. At the same time, you have 386 bosses, all of them politicians. So the way you act is different from the way you may act if you're working in a ministry with only 1 or 2 or 3 ministers who are members of parliament. Okay? So we have to give them all these skills on how to answer questions to members of parliament, how to react when the member of parliament comes in.
Lack of experience and procedural understanding has many times seen work stall, leading to loss of time and resources.
If a bill is brought to Parliament, and because people must be given capacity building, and it takes more than a year within the committee on the floor of Parliament, that hinders the progress of work of Parliament and costs money. Secondly, right now you may note that we have instituted what we call value for money audit, according to the new Audit Act as amended, which requires the Auditor General to conduct both financial and value for money audits. But I want to tell you now, out of over about 40 reports that have been submitted to Parliament, Parliament has only dealt with 2. And partially because members of Parliament have not been given enough capacity in this area.
Definitely, I expect to see great changes in a way members will be contributing, in a way members will be handling these bills, even analyzing policies, being able to identify the gaps. Because when this center is put in place, I know one of the thematic areas that they will take us through will be also budgeting, and because this is also part of the legislation that and our role as Parliament to appropriation of the budget. I will expect members to gain these skills of how to analyze the budget, to ensure that the budget is equitably drawn, and to ensure that the budget is gender sensitive. These are some of the areas. So I expect actually the members' deliberations after going through this parliamentary study center to go up. And of course, it will help us, especially will take a lot of time, even those other areas where you find that possibly would have gone through that area so fast, but you find you bring in issues. Somebody is talking about let's say, hydropower, then another one will bring in another issue completely different.
Commissioner Honorable Jalia Bintu says that district local councils should also benefit from the Institute of Parliamentary Studies since they complement the work of Parliament.
I will expect the local governments also to benefit from the skills which the members of Parliament will be benefiting from. Because the local governments, they usually, we give them the delegated responsibilities of also coming up with bylaws, with ordinances. But you realize that most of the local governments actually have not come up with any ordinance. And this is because we are lacking such a center which would take the local government councillors through the skills of how they can come up with an ordinance and what it takes for them to really to identify an area where they can come up with a legislation.
Josephine Watera is a research officer, Department of Library and Research, Parliament of Uganda, who has undertaken a few courses in respect to her parliament assignment.
Attending this course on working with parliamentary committees, I learned that they may not necessarily have to do the work of public accountability committees, but as staff, we help them to review documents that ministries have submitted and help these committees, sessional committees, to identify areas which resources were allocated, but less has been reported on them. So it is from here that the committees are able to take it on and forward to public accountability committees. I didn't know about this until I was able to attend these courses.
She underscores the need for a local training institute for the Uganda Parliament.
I think that we should have had this institute as early as yesterday. Though it's coming, we should all give the necessary support that is required. We all have to participate in publicizing this institute, in encouraging as many people as possible to come and learn about our institute, and as much as possible to bring together all the information that we have been able to gain from the different short trainings that have been uncoordinated world over, to bring together and empower this institute to be able to package all the necessary information that is needed for us as staff, but even as members of parliament, for the betterment of our country.
She is among the few who have been availed the chance to attend such trainings, whose cost implication has hampered many from attaining the same.
One should know to a certain extent what the rules of procedure say, although the clerks now become experts in interpreting it. Two, there are a set of staff who serve committees, for example, clerks. So we have to train them how to write reports. So we shall be doing this thing, these people in their groups. How do they write parliamentary reports? How do they summarize reports for members of parliament? Okay. Then we have groups like the budget staff. So we shall train them into budget analysis. So the school will have a topic on budget analysis. And the staff members there will be trained how to summarize budgets, how to analyze budgets and present them to members of parliament. How to scrutinize budgets, how to scrutinize Auditor General's reports, So these are the support services we give to members of parliament. So we are supposed to be experts ourselves. So this school will tailor this training so that it supports our work to support members of parliament and committees of parliament. So that legislative drafting, So here we have a team of lawyers, but then if we are now to do legislative drafting, we have to take them abroad. But this college could have a team of qualified Ugandans who are teaching legislative drafting. So the course will be done here. The good thing with it is that for money we can take one person to England. You may train 7 people at a go. So most of these trainings will be group trainings. Okay? So staff will be classified or stratified into clusters. Then each cluster will go and do a particular course.
Indeed, it has been costly. Staff and members of parliament benefit majorly through international workshops and study tours to other parliaments, which has been costly and thus benefited only a few. The Institute of Parliamentary Studies aims at bringing such training opportunities closer to the beneficiaries, making it more cost-effective and profitable to many through locally organized trainings and seminars done by local professional resource persons. One such resource person is the Director, Foundation for Human Rights Initiative, Uganda, Livingstone Sewanyana, whose interest is to help members of parliament understand issues of human rights as an oversight institution.
A member of parliament, in his primary role of enacting laws, has to ensure that whatever legislation goes out of parliament is consistent with the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, international standards to which Uganda is party, and must at all times be aware of the obligations of the state and the rights of the citizens. In this task of creating consciousness within the members of staff of parliament and members of parliament, our role has been to ensure that they come to grips with the human rights standards, they come to grips with the constitutional provisions, they come to grips with international law, which provides for various safeguards that must be incorporated in any law.
A question to the Deputy Clerk, Administrative Services of Parliament. What has been your experience in trying to build capacity for staff and members of Parliament?
Now, the induction programs and the rotation programs are once, at the beginning of the term of Parliament. The periodic, focused workshops and so on, those do not benefit all the members. They may benefit members of a single committee, which is looking at a specific issue, and therefore the training is focused on that single issue.
And what are your expectations of the Institute?
A graduate coming from a university will not blend, will not learn of the operations, the practices and procedures of Parliament very quickly. Same to a member who is coming into Parliament for the first time. You take time to learn. Take time to learn. And some of these processes and procedures may not make sense to an ordinary individual. For example, government may come up with, with a bill, an amendment bill of one line. You're just amending one clause of a bill. But you still have to subject it to 3 separate readings. The first reading, then you refer to a committee, then the second reading, then the third reading, and then you pass it. Something which probably in the private sector somebody would decide in 20 minutes.
Beyond Uganda, the Institute will be a one-stop center of excellence, as Uganda has been many times visited for study by many African countries with specific interests, given its success stories in parliamentary performance.
Our budget process was, I think, 2 years or 3 years ago, acclaimed by the African peer review mechanism as a best practice, our budget process. Parliament is involved in the process of formulating the budget up to the point of implementation of that budget, which is not the case in some parliaments which have visited. Parliament comes in at the point of approving appropriation and so on and so forth, but the groundwork in analyzing the policies which underlie the figures, that is, they don't participate. But in Uganda, in the Parliament of Uganda gets involved in the budget process right from the word go up to the time of its implementation.
Jill Chatuhire is Program Manager, Westminster Foundation for Democracy, Uganda office. She explores what it means to have this center at Parliament of Uganda.
We think that with the establishment of the Institute coming into place, that will be all streamlined and properly structured, that if anybody is interested in training or any course is supposed to be delivered, it is delivered, and the Institute will keep memory of that course, and the participants will, be easily tracked and easily, followed up for evaluation to know where they were before the training and if the training has benefited them or not. So, we think that with the coming in of the Institute now, it will be streamlined, it will be better structured, and it will be easier for Parliament to track the progress that it has made in capacity building of its members.
Different expectations are rocking minds of the institution if established. A landmark, and what are your expectations of the Institute?
The Institute is going to develop training curricula. And this training curricula will be informed, will gain from the experiences of what we have seen happening. The curricula will be subjected to a lot of scrutiny to make sure that it is relevant, to make sure that it enriches the capacity of both members of Parliament, the staff, and even councillors from local governments.
A woman gets married into a family. He must be given a familiarization tour to understand which are the go areas and the no-go areas. That is induction. But the real process of marriage also takes another training over a period of time. So to us, whether the training institute is there or not, every time we receive new members of the family or there is an election, there definitely must be an induction. The only difference is that creating an induction when you have a training institute becomes easier, and is easier to determine what areas to induct about, other than when you don't have one.
Here is a multi-party parliament. In the ministries, the civil servants serve a government which is run by one party. In parliament, you have the opposition side. The opposition alone has about 5-6 parties. Then the main party, which is the NRM, which is in government. Now here you are a research officer, for example. You are supposed to do research, both for the opposition and for members of the ruling party. So there must be some unique tactics which you apply so that you are seen to be, and you are actually neutral in as far as your judgment and your research work is done.
Of course, the center, like in other countries, such centers, after somebody has gone through this training for like a month, 2 months, I will expect also a certificate. Yeah, because if I've been undertaking a legislative drafting course for some time, why shouldn't I get that? Because the skill which I will have acquired as a person, I will have benefited, and it will help me anywhere I go. Because the laws, policies, bylaws, even in your community, you can use them to help those communities to come up with some decisions. So these are some of the gains which I will expect the schools to really to help us with.
But how sustainable is the institute?
As the institute takes on and grows, we hope that the Parliamentary Commission budget a portion of it will be allocated to the operations and to the workings of the institution. And also, as it continues to grow, we hope that the beneficiaries that will be attracted to the institution from the local government, from the regional parliaments, and from Africa as a whole, will be able to contribute a nominal fee for the services that they will be getting from the institution, and this money will also go into the operationalization of the institution.
Just a word from the Right Honourable Speaker of Uganda's Parliament.
Our development as a parliament was interfered with. I think parliament was even suspended from many bodies for a long time. So we had no opportunity even to go for training or participate in meetings. But coming to the point of the institute, we want to do our own in-house training. We may not entirely close out to others, because some offers, like the government, the Parliament of India has regular offers they give to all the parliaments of the world as part of their outreach program. Those will continue, but we will be able to do our own in-house training here, both for the members, for areas like legislative drafting and so on, writing motions and so on and so forth. So it will help. It's going to be an institute for Uganda anyway.